we're gonna talk about an area called Mount Massive and Mount Elbert, and there are two mountains that are right next to each other. I'm gonna put the picture up into this video here. I'll probably just put it on either side of that blue tent or the green tent. There was a bunch of us camping at this spot. It was a big family affair. And I had been in Sur for a little bit, and I had told Mike that I was going out to this location. And for some reason, Mike told me, this is a BFRO location. You can't Bigfoot there. And I said, I don't really care if it's a Bigfoot location with BFRO or not. They're doing ongoing research there, I guess, and I've never seen another researcher out there, just like I've never seen any other researchers out at any of the other places that we've been to. So I really don't care. But the thing is, nobody owns anything out there unless you physically own a spot. If you own that land, then it's yours. If you don't own the land, you can't throw a claim, you can't kick people off, you can't threaten them, you can't do anything. You just be a happy everyday person who's camping on property that is either owned by the state, or it's owned by the government, or it's owned by you. It's going to be one of those three. This location is nestled, it's not too far from Leadville, Colorado. And I'm going to show you some pictures of it, and I'll just kind of do it here. Kind of show off how far it is really from this location. Anybody can go there. What's really cool about this spot, now I had hopes of seeing something, and I actually had an odd event happen prior to going to this spot. I had a dream that I was up on a mountain, and I had gone down this one path, and there are trees that were overshadowing this walkway that I found by accident. And I walked all the way down this pathway, turned the corner, and something started to kind of follow me and chase me through the woods. And I stood my ground in my dream. I always tend to stand my ground in any type of fighting situation. I stand my ground. You can decide how your dreams are going to play out. But what's really weird about this location is that this is where the dream took place. And it happened before I got to this campsite. And I didn't know about this location until I climbed up on the Mount Elbert side. The Colorado Trail cuts through this park, and it's really pretty cool. You'll find a lot of people that are hiking down from one side. Usually it's from the Mount Massive side to Mount Elbert, but sometimes people are going in reverse and they're going, towards Denver on this trailhead. But when we had gotten there, I didn't know about this. I knew about my dream, but I didn't know where it was going to take me. And the first part of this story, it's going to start on the Mount Massive side, and that's the side that we're camping on. There's a river that's just beyond these tents that you see here. And I learned some interesting things. Not like if you hear rock clacking, a lot of people will take, like Jeff Yellick and Brian would take these pool balls and they would smack them together, and that sounds like rock clacking. Well, I have seen crows grab a snail shell and pound the living hell out of it into a rock, and just to get at the snails that are on the inside, that sounds like rock clacking if the conditions are right for it. But what's really bizarre about rock clacking is that rivers can produce a rock clacking sound. And so right behind these two tents is a decent, it's not a huge river, but it's pretty quick. It was a fast moving stream or a fast moving river that's going through it. I mean, you can jump across this thing. It wasn't very wide, but the rocks that were inside, I kept hearing rock clacking. And I walked up to the river's edge and I was listening, and I got down to the river to listen, and you could hear rock clacking happening in the water. And that's when the water is pushing these rocks and they're smacking into each other. The water itself amplifies that sound and it pushes that sound out. So you might be thinking you're hearing rock clacking, and you might be somewhat close to a river or a good flowing stream, and what you're really hearing is just rocks pounding away inside, you know, the river, and the water just amplifying the sound. It is really pretty cool. If you ever experience it, try to record it. I didn't even think about filming any of that, but I am going to show you more stuff on this little journey of ours. So let me go to the next screen here. Now, I was on a, from where my perspective, I was looking across the way here, and I had done some hiking. Now, if you're going to hike in these areas, make sure you write down your information on these little, there's a box at each trailhead. You're supposed to write down who you are, who's on the trail, how old you are, what you look like, all this jazz, in case somebody finds you dead up on the mountainside, or injured, you know, like, or if if you go missing, the Park Service will go through that box and see which side you went on, you know, before you went missing. Well, I didn't know about these things, and I kind of bypassed it. So I was up hiking on, it was Mount Massive side, and actually I was out hiking around in different areas. I didn't go up on the mountain just yet, but I noticed across the river from us were structures, and I was really interested in those structures, and I wanted to, you know, go over and see it. So the next day I went hiking out, and I ended up taking this photograph. And one of the things, I thought I was seeing structures back up in here. And when I started to look for it, now zooming into photographs can sometimes yield good things, and sometimes it can yield not so good things. I'm trying to see if it's in this picture here, if you can see it or not. Dark objects. I used to think that every dark object that you find in the trees was probably a Sasquatch of some sort. You can't see it because it's too blurry. But I used to think that that's what it was. Every dark object could possibly either be a cave, which is not. That's just a rock on top of a rock. Dark shadows can sometimes fool people. And this thing here kind of looks like it could possibly be something, but you can't know for sure unless you hike onto the other side, go up this loose rock area, which is kind of strange, because in this area there was a lot of giant boulders that had rolled down through the trees. And if you look around at some trees, I'm going to show you, it looks like, that looks like an animal right there. I keep thinking it's an animal, but that's just a rock with a stump on the side. That there is, I lost my train of thought. But you might think that they're tree structures. In reality check, it's just a giant boulder that blew through the area. Like this rock right here is a boulder. This thing came rolling off the mountain at some point. This one came off the mountain at some point, and they just lodged where they're at. But they blew through, looks like they came down through these trees here. And a lot of times, you know, I'm looking for structures and all that jazz, but there are structures in here. And there are also massive tree breaks caused by these giant boulders here. Oh, this is that object. So I zoomed in a little bit closer. Now, even though this is just a big tree, something here, right here, is weird. And I cannot clean this up enough to make it look good. But to kind of show it, see how you can see it. It does look kind of odd. There is something right here that I can't really figure out, but it does look like it's got a almost like a conical head. You got, you know, those are some seriously big sockets, if that's what it is, for eye sockets. If this is a bony plate that goes up to the center of it, that is kind of strange too. I don't know what this is, and it does look like it extends out past this, because you can see a little bit of a hump there. Maybe it could be a shoulder or something, and then it kind of, I know this is a part of a tree, and then this is a whole bunch of foliage, but there is something right here, and it does carry over to something here too as well. And if anything, this could be a tree peaker. This is a boulder back here. There is a tree that's in front of it, so who knows what that is actually, because I don't really know. This is what I would call a, Let's see if I can aim this camera down a little more. There we go. This thing here, even though this is a lightning strike on a tree, I like how it looked, how it bends around and all that jazz. I think it's kind of cool. But from a distance, this looked like a person sitting out on a tree stump, and that's what I thought it was. At first was a very dark mass sitting out there, and then I realized that this is a tree, and it probably was struck by lightning. When you're looking at your photographs and you're looking over and over and over again, sometimes you'll see stuff that don't make sense, and sometimes you catch something really cool, and other times you are just disappointed on what you'd found because you think you're looking at something, and then you go back and you look again at it and you realize that nope, that's not what it was. Or the technology gets better and you can clean up your images and really see what it is you're photographing. My camera is really out of focus, or I am zoomed in really far, and that could very well be what the case may be. So this is a little valley that as I was walking down through, I was heading down towards a river, but I was filming all these trees, all these little baby aspens. Aspens a lot of times will yield structures, and every so often I'll see one. And I must have been seeing something, or maybe I just was taking random photographs, which I typically will do as well. This is Mount Massive over here. This is part of it. There is a campsite that's way over here on the far left. But I was told when I was talking to campers up here that there was an event that happened one of the nights where I heard what sounded like someone screaming and then jumping off a cliff. And it was absolutely weird. It happened the first night we were there, and I heard, I was out up at night. We were camping in, I do believe, my Honda Element. And I kept hearing this sound. And I thought, holy crap, someone jumped off the mountain. I was like, that's crazy. Well, what was going on? All the people that were up here on this mountain heard the same thing. And they got up and they ran all the way down. And this mountain goes for quite a ways to the left. And they ran all the way to the edge. And they turned on their flashlights and they thought someone jumped off or committed suicide. And they looked for this person. They couldn't find him. And they're like, what the hell's going on? And I'm down here ways away from them, listening, going, what the hell's going on up there? But I couldn't see the flashlights moving around from my perspective. And they went back, and I was like, that is crazy. And then by the time they got back to their campsite, and they're all getting nestled back in their tent, we all heard the same thing happen again. And it was like, wah! It sounded like someone just went off the cliff. And I was like, what the hell? And they all went charging back down that trail. And there's only one trail into that area and one trail back out. And they said there is a narrow path in there that you're going to run into somebody. If they're trying to hide, you're going to see them because there's nowhere to hide up there. But they couldn't figure out where that person went. And they all went all the way down, turned around and walked all the way back a second time. And then they all made an agreement that if that happens again, they're not going to go out until morning. They didn't want to go running back down, across that little area where there is a potential of falling off on one side or the other, and then run, to the edge of that cliff. And they said, no, they got there and there was just nothing there. They couldn't figure out where that scream was coming from. And from my perspective, it sounded like it was coming from up on that mountain. But everybody I talked to coming off Mount Massive, they all said the same thing, that they thought somebody jumped or somebody, was thrown off the mountain. And they couldn't find anything. No one ever found anything that happened up there on that mountain. So I'm hiking up the mountain trail now, and this is one of the boulders that I'd found. And I was looking at some of these odd tree pieces here. I was finding tree breaks in here. There's like little broken trees here and there, and they were all the tree breaks were all kind of facing the same direction. They were all kind of facing this general direction to my left. And I thought that was kind of odd because usually if a rock is falling down off the mountain, the trees will be broken in the direction that rock is going, not the direction facing that boulder. I thought this thing down here was something else at first. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's crazy. And it just turned out to being a stump. I almost thought that was an arm sticking up. The trailhead actually goes up and over this little crest and then back down and then cuts around and goes around this side. And then there's a trail that goes up here to where I guess the camping sites are up here. And these are just makeshift campsites. I don't think there was like a designated camping area up there. These are just areas where when people are hiking down through, that they just said that this is where we're going to camp tonight because they didn't want to walk all the way down into the valley and then set up in the dark. They just set up there and camped up there for the night. So when I was up on the trail, I noticed I kept looking down and I could see those structures that were down in the valley below me. And I really wanted to go down into that valley and kind of explore that area. Because I wanted to see what was over there. I was really curious to see what was down right across our campsite across the river. But this is part of the trail. You can see the trail right here. It's like just going right along the edge. I noticed a tree up inside here. Now, I thought this was part of one of these trees. And this tree here, I could not find where it came from. I couldn't find anything about it because this tree, I could see the top of the tree because that's the top of the tree there. This tree had its top, but this tree right here does not make any sense because it came all the way through and it was resting on all these weaker branches. And however it got in there, it looked like it was fed through between this branch and this branch of this tree here. And it was resting on some of these other branches that were sticking off of this tree. It was just bizarre. And this thing was up about 20 feet in the air. This tree was about 60 feet tall. I'm guessing 60, 70 feet tall. This tree was about the same height. But this tree was equally thickness. Here is the same thickness of this tree. And I could not figure it out. This is the bottom part of that tree. And this would have been the top part of the tree, but something fed it through this spot and it made it inside this tree just perfectly horizontal. It was absolutely bizarre. Just completely bizarre. I'll just turn this a little bit like this so you can see a little bit more of it. I didn't realize that was turned that far over. Now you can see it. So this is that tree right here. All right here. And it makes no sense for that tree to be positioned in the place that it's at. Out that way, are you? Don't remember what I was looking at in here. Unless I saw something in here. I think I was looking at this gap underneath these trees. I don't think that. I was looking at that thing. Oop. No. I think I was looking at this thing. It's a little bit darker than normal. But I can't tell you. I thought I zoomed in better, but I guess not. This is a stump, or other people might say, "Oh, there's something there." Well, it's called the stump squatch. They call that for a reason. There's nothing special about that. It just looked big, black, and massive, and from a distance, it looks like something more than what it actually is. You can actually see the structure of the tree. Roughly like the circles of the tree, the outside skin of a tree can actually yield some interesting veining and stuff on it that you can, get a glimpse of, and it's kind of intriguing. This is just another part of that tree sticking out as well. Those are not glowing eyes, even though it looks like it. I thought this was kind of cool. I don't know how that actually happens, because that didn't look like it was cut out, but I thought that was pretty groovy. There's that tree. Let's kind of zoom out a little bit. Kind of see it. That's kind of neat. This is the trail. Now the valley down here, I go down and see it the very next day. But as I'm hiking down through, I'm stepping over logs here, and there's a lot of windblown stuff to my left. But I was coming across people here and there as I was hiking, and they were kind of feeding me some stories that they were hearing up there on the top of the mountain. Hey everybody, this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild, and this video is going to have to end right now because I have to stop it. I am coming close to the 25-minute threshold, and I don't really want to overextend that, even though I have in the past. So I'm going to try to cut this one short, but I will resume from this position going forward, and I'm going to talk about the next day, because what spawns the next day gets me to this location, and I will talk to you on Wednesday. So again, my name is Patrick. This is Sasquatch in the Wild, and I hope you enjoyed the journey, and I'll talk to you then.